Lower back pain can be very limiting, annoying, and intimidating when you're working out, especially when you're lifting weights. But that doesn't have to mean you have to completely quit on working out. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you my favorite approaches to training when you're experiencing lower back pain. Let's first talk about approach to training when you're experiencing lower back pain. And that's gonna depend on the type of pain that you're experiencing and the type of injury that you have. If you're experiencing very severe, sharp pain that limits many basic movements, like even walking, then at that point, I would strongly recommend to take a day off from training and see a doctor before you come back to the gym. However, if you're experiencing some discomfort in your lower back, some tightness, some dull pain, but it doesn't necessarily limit all the basic human movements, then the worst thing at that point that you can do is nothing. If you're sitting for a long time and you're laying down, I do believe that it's gonna cause more tightness and aggravation in your lower back, and that's not gonna help you with the healing process. So that doesn't mean that you have to train very hard, but even light activity like walking is gonna help you with your tightness and that lower back pain. If the injury is fresh or the pain is fresh, I would recommend also to ice that area for around 20 minutes, 3 times a day to lower the inflammation. You can also take anti-inflammatory medications like ibuprofen and try to avoid all the exercises that aggravate and cause pain, specifically spinal compressing exercises like barbell back squat, ankle heavy leg presses, deadlifts, good mornings, bent over rows, and try to utilize exercises that put minimal stress on your spine. When you're approaching exercises, make sure you're warming up properly. Start with a lighter weight. Make sure your form is correct, you're bracing yourself appropriately, you're creating tightness in your trunk and your spine, and then gradually increase the weight if you can. You can also consider wearing a lifting belt. They are great because they create intra-abdominal pressure and it's gonna allow you to keep your spine more in place. It's gonna help you to lower the risk for injuries. Now let's talk about exercises that can potentially cause more pain or injury and really compress your spine, and what type of substitutions you can do to target similar movements or the same muscle groups. Like for example, when you have a lower back pain, I'll probably stay away from heavy barbell back squats for your quad muscles or heavy angled leg presses. Those are great exercises, I love them, but if you're experiencing lower back pain, you might be better off doing some substitutions, like for example, leg extensions, split squat, Bulgarian squat, reverse lunges, back step ups. All that type of exercise is gonna also target your quad muscles without putting that much strain or pressure on your spine. For hip hinging movements like stiff leg deadlift or good mornings to target your hamstrings or glutes, I would recommend to do seated hamstring curls because that's not gonna put pressure on your lower back, but it's gonna be a great exercise to target your hamstrings. For back muscles, I'll probably also stay away from movements such as barbell bent over rows or dumbbell bent over rows, and try to do bench supported rows like dumbbell rows on the bench, because they're gonna release that pressure from your spine. You can also do lat pull downs. I think they will be fine for you. So all those type of supported rowing movements, either on the bench or on the machine to support your back, is gonna be helpful when you have lower back pain. I would also stay away from overhead barbell or dumbbell presses, or standing bicep curls with the barbell or dumbbells, or standing ladder raises. If you're feeling pain when you're doing those movements in a standing position, it's better to do them supported against the bench. Like for example, you can do dumbbell curls against the bench, or ladder raises against the bench, or incline dumbbell presses. All those back supporting exercises or utilizing machines gonna help you to elevate that pressure from your spine. And I would recommend to do that until you feel 100% recover, and then gradually come back to those compound movements like we mentioned before, the squats, the deadlifts, and things like that. But take your time, make sure again you have a proper form, you're starting with a lighter weights, and then gradually increase the weight over time. I think it's also important to assess what caused the back pain, so we can prevent that from happening later in the future. So did you experience lower back pain because maybe you were lifting too much weight and your form was suffering? You were maybe rounding your back when you were lifting, where we're doing a squat, for example, or maybe you have a weak core muscles or poor mobility, or maybe you're overtraining, you're not getting enough recovery. I think this is very important to assess so we can prevent that from happening in the future. Now, when it comes down to preventable approaches, I think the few things that you can do is, first of all, strengthening your core muscles. And that doesn't mean necessarily only your six pack, but also your spinal erectors, your internal and external obliques, your upper back muscles, your glutes. Strengthening that trunk area is going to be very beneficial to make your back and your core more stable when you're performing different exercises. Incorporating mobility, that doesn't necessarily mean stretching. Stretching is different than mobility. Stretching is just you holding poses statically to increase the range of motion. Mobility allows you to improve the range of motion in the joint under control with strength. We're not gonna go over how to do mobility training because this is not the video about that, but incorporating mobility is going to be also very beneficial. Always make sure that you're maintaining proper form, you're bracing yourself, you're breathing properly. Wearing that lifting belts also is going to be beneficial, and making sure that you're managing your fatigue, you're not overdoing at the gym. Yes, we want to train hard, but you also want to make sure that you're recovering properly, and incorporating muscle fascia release to lower the tightness in your muscles, I think also can be beneficial. So maybe you can do foam rolling, or utilizing a Theragun, or doing massages. All those things can be helpful to prevent your lower back to get injured in the future.